Okay, say that again.
This is Tray T. And these are some of the early pictures of the McClymonds building, or McClymonds home, when it was first built down on 4th Street. That's one of the big hall back there under the balcony. Another one, there's your double living room, and the library at the back. This is with their furniture in it. Now this was a picture taken, a modern picture taken, of the hallway, which is really a very beautiful, beautiful hallway. And that window there was made by Tiffany's in New York and brought here and put in that hall. And there's a light in back of it. Now there's a skylight coming down in that room in back of it. That was the old billiard room. And skylight come right down there, and there was also a light there to light the table, and you can see how it would show up that picture, that window. This is the hall looking straight back, and the stairs going up to the upstairs hall. Very, very handsome home. That's a beautiful home. And this is the music room. I think they call that the music room, don't they?
I think that's it.
Yeah. At the up at the Women's Club. And it's the very, very handsome room. Now this was the where, as I said before on this, now I haven't shown these pictures for a long time, so I may be just a little bit hesitant on some of these things. But that's where streetcar freight barn was. And this stood on North 1st Street, northeast, and it stood just about where the steam laundry is today. Is that called the steam laundry or American steam laundry? What?
Sanitary laundry?
Sanitary laundry. Mm-hmm. That stood just about in where that was.
It's not the same building, though?
Oh, no, it's not the same building. That's in back of it there. That goes right back off the street. There's, of course, a modern picture of the Women's Club. This is another one of the homes here in Massillon that is on the National Historic Register. That is where the down at the state or down at the cemetery, and it's a stone building, very beautiful building, and it is on the Massillon Historic Register, the National Historic Register. Now here we're getting back into the square of the town. Now this is the northeast corner of 1st Street and Lincoln Way East. That's called the Coleman Building. And matter of fact, Coleman's had that, and they had things in both sides of that. That was a double building there. And of course, it was long before my time. I don't remember. I should remember that, but I don't. What was in there? I have an idea. The next home there is the Conrad. And then there's some more of these homes going up on Lincoln Way East. This was the old Methodist and Masonic temple. Now they built this building together. The Methodists lived on the first floor. The Masons were on the 2nd floor, and it originally stood over on the southeast corner of Charles and Park View. Is where the YMCA later on was in there. They had their cafeteria right where this building stood. But this was really a handsome building. But a man bought that. He put it over there at the corner of Tremont Street, southeast, and northwest corner. There's this is Clemens stone, flour feed, cement, a little bit of everything was in here. That's where Clemens had his headquarters in there, and that's where it was up until they tore that building. They built another building in the same place, but they tore this one down and built the other one right there.
Where was this?
That was down on Canal Street, or First Street southwest, and it would be right south of Tremont Street, and on the west side of the Canal Street, or First Street. I keep calling that Canal Street. It was on the west side of First Street, and that's where they were there until, matter of fact, when they went out of business. This was later on called the Hess Building, but I don't know what it was originally, but it was one of the old buildings in the town here, and it stood on the, let me see, southwest corner of Lincoln Way West and Exchange Street, and it's in there. Oney Carver had his cigar factory, cigar store in there, and it was just an all-around kind of a hangout later on.
What's Exchange Street now?
What's that?
I can't think of the new name for Exchange Street.
I don't think there is a new name for it, is there?
I can't think.
It's Exchange Street would be.
Oh, it's down by the Sears building?
No. It's now the new drive-in. You go back that street to go to the bank.
Okay. By the old First National.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's they go right in that drive-in there. Of course, today it's blocked off. You can't go in there just except to go to the bank.
Right.
Now, this is one of the early pictures. This, by the way, this picture was taken by Abel Fletcher, and you can see both of these buildings are still standing, although you don't realize it. But the one on the right is the one in there where Kimmons and Snively are in there together in that building. And the one across the street is where Cornell is. And by the way, those four buildings there together are still standing. You don't think they are, but they are. But if you look up that top of that building there, and you see those little breaks going across there, that is still up there. If you look, you'll see that still is there. And it, I know that I had a heck of a time when I first saw those. I went down and I looked at them, and that top was still on there at that time, and it's on there today. Now they put, for example, where Cornell is, why, there was a couple other companies been in there, and they put different tops on there. Writers, Cornell was in there in the one place there. That originally was McLean's, and Dangler were in there. They had a store in there. Next was the old Ryder Ryder drugstore. Before that, it was the old Cackler drugstore. The next one was there for years. And the next one, well, there was a number of places in there, but later on that became the fourth, and the building's still standing there too. All right, what's the name of the jewelry store? Write down. What? Duncan. Yes, Duncan. Duncan Jewelry Store. And Duncan took the front off of that and redesigned the front of that building. But when you get back about 2/3 of the way, you see you go up some steps to a little raise in the back of that store, and that's the way it was originally. There's the same picture again, only this time you just see it from the corner there, looking directly northeast. Now, this is around the 50s, 1950, and it would be, you getting it the best you can get it to?
We're working on it there.
Okay. Now, you can see, now you notice a change on the top of those buildings. That's what they've done to that, but the original top on that is still the original top on that building. But here you have them, they have the Conrad Hotel, or I mean Conrad Hotel. There's the Conrad hardware store, They completely changed the front of that, and they did that years and years and years ago, because I don't ever remember it was any different than what it is right now. And there's these two buildings this side of it, and up there where Duncan is, why they changed the front of that also. But all of the rest of those, thank the Lord they didn't change those at that time. They have been changed since then. It's just too bad they did, because those were actually good-looking fronts on those buildings. This is down South Erie Street. Straight down. There's a Masonic building down there with a mansard roof. And that's an old building there. This is down in the old stone block. This is the Arnold's Insurance Agency. And that's the grandfather standing there with a beard. And then his son, he has one son there. At that time, Willard is not in that picture. But look at those high bicycles out in front of the store there, his shop. And that's down there in the stone block. Now that's where Arnold's then moved from there up there to this building, which was up there, of course, right there. It says the Maslin Banking Company right there. And it was a, but the undertaking, or the insurance company, was the left side there. That was Arnold's. They moved in there. And then on the right side was Frieg's Restaurant, which is down there on West Main Street, where it is right now, or West Lincoln Way. And look at that light up there in the center, and the big number in front of it. And it's it was a saloon at that time, and while they serve some liquor there, I think their main thing is a restaurant of food.
That's my favorite photo.
What?
That's my favorite photo that you have. It's wonderful.
Didn't you ever see? Do you have that?
No.
Huh.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's a,
Well, this is a dandy too.
and that one is Lieberman's Bakery. Now that was taken back about the turn of the century. And that shows the old George Lieberman there in the center with all of his workers and the delivery wagons down there on the side street, down on Diamond Alley. And they're getting there ready to load up to go out with their deliveries that day. Now, according to Albert, now there's some question on this, but according to Albert, this is the only building that escaped the fire on the time that the whole block was burned out, from Erie Street up to First Street, northeast, back to Federal, and back down to Erie. Every building in that block there was burned out, according to Albert, except this building, and that's where Yoakum was at that time. But it is an old building. There's no question about that. But I'm not sure whether he's right on that or not, but let's say that he was right. But it's the only building that was left after that fire of 1852. This is the List Meat Market, and that stood on Tremont Street between Erie and First Street southeast. And it's a good picture of the market, and there's a good picture of the interior of that market. You look back in there, and there's a big slice of beef hanging back there. They'd cut off whatever you wanted. Why, you could get it, and they'd cut it off for you, and that was it. You were all taken care of. There's gas lights in there. I don't know how in the world they ever could see with those fool things, but they did, and they were used to them, and to them it was a great light. Now this, I don't remember whose home this was originally. I know Danglers lived there for years. Their whole family lived there. And later on, that was the starting of the American Legion, started in that very building, and they're right back in that same spot again right now. The Carnival. Now, all of us remember the Carnival. That was down on the park, or down on the flats, but on 3rd Street southwest, or northwest, and the river went right around that. It would come in, and it would go around the back of it, And this was 3rd Street, right in the front of here, where you were sitting here looking. We're standing on 3rd Street, looking east, and there you can see the St. Mary's Church and St. Paul's Church. And I don't know what that building is over there to the extreme left. That can't be the Longfellow School. That's too far north. So I don't know what that is, whether that's a building or some other building or what it is. But that's St. Mary's and St. Paul's Church there, right about in the left center of that picture. Carnival, they used to have a carnival come to Mass on at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. And it would draw the crowds all right. This was the doorway of the Jarvis home down on South Erie Street, up on the top of the hill there. Now that would be stood right across from the entrance, the viaduct going across to the west side over to the Central Steel office. But that was it. Yep, right across from it.
Is this Belmont or Edgewater?
That's Belmont. Belmont. That's the doorway of that home. And that was really a handsome home. But and that was quite a masterpiece of building on that one. Each row of stone was cut a little bit smaller than the row below it. The farther up it went, the smaller those rows of stone got. And they were all faced and all finished so that they looked almost like a piece of brick. By the way, there's a piece of that stone. There's one of those stones up there in your walkway there, going into the room, into the entrance of the, is that the Smith room there? What's that?
The Harrison room?
Yeah, the Harrison room, yes. There's one of these stones. Albert went down and got that and brought it up here. And it's out there in that walkway. This is on South Erie Street, and that is looking south. And there's the Pennsylvania Railroad track going across there. And it's see the old brick street going through there and the curve in the road. And it's not exactly the best road in the world.
Is that where the underpass is?
And that's on 1st Street Southeast, yes. But not where the underpass, most people think of it on Erie Street. This is on 1st Street. This is the Fred Griffith home. When he first built it out there on Hankins Road, he called it, I think, Journey's End, didn't he?
I don't know.
I think he did. Journey's End. And they lived there until, Fred died there. And then I think Mrs. Griffith left that house and moved over. She lived over on Lake Street for quite a while there before she passed away. And there's Charlie Hostetter's home. And that stood out on the corner of, originally it was 16th Street. And down at the bottom of the hill was Campbell Circle. And originally this was called Perry Road coming through here. But Charlie Hostetter had this home made to fit him and his wheelchair. I was working down there when this home was built. It was built in 1926. And those doors were all real wide doors because he could take his, those were all custom-made doors. And he could take his wheelchair right through every doorway in the house. They never finished the upstairs on it when they were, as long as he was living there. And it was really quite a very handsome home. And then the house right next to it, which is still standing, that was built by his brother Charlie Hostetter. But this was built by Clarence. And of course, these kids that went in there, they supposed to have had a lot of paint in the basement that exploded and blew that house apart. And it's too bad because it was really a nice home. Okay, do you want to look at any more? Yes. And here, Bill. Now that is the YMCA on the right. Right next to it there is where the Oberlins lived when I was a kid there. They had the hardware store on First Street Northeast. But they lived there on Tremont Street. They lived there for a long time until after he died. Then she moved back over onto Oak Street, and their home is still standing back there. Now there's the house in back of the Tremont House on South Erie Street. This was taken shortly after it burned over there, that terrific fire they had. And it wiped out everything. I don't know why I don't have that house in there, why I don't have the rest of the building in there too. But I don't have, it's in here in some of my pictures somewhere. But that's a home is right in back of it there, in between that and what we used to always call the Seiler Flats, which is over here to the left. Now again, I never knew this until not too many years ago, that this was a park here. It was a park that belonged to Massillon. It was a Massillon City Park right here along Tremont Street. And there is the Tremont House, which was later on called the Seiler Hotel. And there's a number, it had all kinds of names on there in that hotel, which was a good-looking hotel. This home stands right on Tremont Street and right in back of the water company office. And it's a good-looking Victorian home. It's one of the few we have left around Massillon. And it's a beautiful, by the way, there were some beautiful homes there on Tremont Street back at that time. Here's another home on Tremont Street, and this is right next to the home there. Let's see, to the right is right next to the old Gackler home, which later on became the Bird home, and Bird home it became the Bernstein home, and Bernstein become the Dr. Hyde's home. And it was now is the home now where the water company office is. There's the home right there on the corner. This was originally built by Gackler, and it was quite a big place here. And I have a picture of it taken from up on the hill, looking down on the house. That's before he had the porch put on. And I didn't realize at that time that porch was comparatively new. That porch was built in 1900. And it was built by Sylvester Bird around the outside of the house.
That is where?
Do you know where the water company office is there? It's right there. They tore that down to build the water office. And now this one was I don't know who built this home originally, but I must have got it right before they tore it down. Anyhow, I know that the home people that I remember in there particularly is the Bob Harrisons. They lived there for a long time. And they had two boys. There was Bob. Bob just died not too long ago. And his brother was, I think it was his brother's name. James. And Mrs. Harrison, well, she was a lovely woman. She sang in the Methodist choir, and she was a hard worker in the Methodist church, and she was a nice person.
Where is this house? Where was it?
It stood there on Wellman Street. Right, there's one house between that and the 4th Street.
Okay.
These are homes that are over on Federal. And these are old homes in there. They're going to tear them down. I got over there and got pictures of them before they did. And they're not too handsome looking, but they're good houses. They were a nice house at one time. And here is the Sill millinery shop right there. And it was finally torn down not too long ago. But it was later on. I'm not sure that's down yet. It may still be there.
That's still there.
Anyway,
The one with the part with the arches?
yes.
That was Zill's?
That was Sills, yes.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember when is that still there?
It's still there.
Okay, I'm sorry. Forget it myself. The house next, the building right next to it was originally built by originally the Randolphs lived in there. And I don't think I'm right on that name. Randolph.
Rudolph?
Rudolph lived in there. And then later on, when Mr. Rudolph died, they moved away from there. As a matter of fact, the Spuhlers, I don't remember, any of you remember Frank Spuhler or Bess Spuhler? The school teacher was Bess Spuhler. Maine Spuhler worked down at the Ideal. But they were all children of descendants of this Rudolph. And he lived in that home, and that's where they lived. As a matter of fact, pretty near all of them were born in there, except the last couple of youngest ones were born in that house in there where Cohen's had their furniture store. Later on, stay with me here. He put a clothing store in there later. Tom Strawn. Tom Strawn moved in there. I don't know why I took this picture. This picture really was such a well-kept up little home. It was up on Wilma Street, and that he was a policeman. And after he died, it just fell apart. And they finally go up there now. It's up almost to the end of the street. There's a spot in between there where they just knocked it down. Dietrichs. Does any people remember the Dietrichs around Massillon? The Dietrich name was a very famous family when they came here, which was back long before my time. But I remember them all. And one of their daughters married Albright, who was a banker here in town. They had one son, and that was Herman Albright. And I remember him. And as a matter of fact, his widow died not too long ago. And this was stood right next to the creek there on Erie, or on 3rd Street. You go right across the creek here is where that big brick home stands. It's on the east side of 3rd Street. And that home stands on the corner of 3rd and Tremont southeast. It's a big white brick home. It's still standing there. Chittister moved down there, I think it was in 1917, and he remodeled that home. And he did a beautiful job on that. By the way, now that roof on that porch, that was a special kind of a roof that was designed by an architect here in Massillon. I think his name was Brown or something like that. And he designed quite a few homes here in the Massillon area. And he put that kind of a peaked porch on quite a few of his homes that he built here in Massillon.
When you said that Herman Albright was one of the children, was that the architect? That was Herman Albright.
No.
Different person. Okay.
Yes. Now, as a matter of fact, this is where Herman Albright lived. He lived right next door to that. Now, this home here, is still standing, by the way. Both of those homes are still standing. You wouldn't recognize the Dietrich home. They have taken the peak off of that roof there, that porch roof, and completely changed it. And this is where the Albrights lived for years. Now, there's the home. I should have shown you this picture first. Now, this is where the who? Chittister. Yes, this was Chittister's home. He bought this home and moved down here in 1917. And it's a very, very handsome place. He made it into a beautiful home. And he was the editor of the Evening Independent. He was a brilliant writer. Boy, his cycloramas that are in the paper, he wrote those. You run across those up there, Marg?
Yeah, we have some in the files.
Yes. Well, I have quite a few of those also. And he wrote those. And then that brick home right next to him there, that was, I think his name was Altman. He had a drugstore here in Massillon for years. And at that time, Tremont Street was really a very, very popular street here in Massillon. And right across from the, right directly south of that is St. Timothy Church. Now we're getting up, this is up on 3rd Street. This is the corner of 3rd and South Street on the northwest corner. And this is right before they got ready to tear these houses down to build the Lincoln School. Now that was Mr. Hughes's home. That was on south of, that was on 3rd Street southeast, and it's below South Street. And Hughes, well, in other words, he had one son, this Sidney Hughes, and then the other one was the dentist here in Massillon for years. I think it was his first name. His name was Hughes also. That's where his father lived. I think he was an Englishman, if I remember correctly, and he was a machinist. There's my hot stove league. I had to take that picture. That's all there is to it. I don't know anybody that's on there. I don't know anything about him at all. But just one of those doggone pictures that just kind of appealed to me.
Is it a Massillon picture?
I suppose it is, although I wouldn't bet a bet on it, because I don't know a single person in there, and I couldn't get anybody to identify anyone is in there.
Oh, it's a wonderful picture.
Isn't it though? But I always call it the Hot Stove League. And I got it. It's a Massillon picture, I'm sure of that. Now, this home is over on Walnut Street, southeast. I took that picture primarily for the decorations on the porch. You see that trim up there? Well, it wasn't too long after that they took that off. So I got it before they did that. I have another home also that has that also. Now, here is Massillon's first home. Now, this was built in Massillon, and it stood originally down there on the southeast corner of Erie and Oak Street. They moved it back here. This is on Oak Street now, and excuse me. Later on, then they tore it down and moved it away. But that was the first home built in Massillon. These are a couple homes. I don't know why these always kind of fascinated me. They're on Oak Street. They're still standing up there. And it's all back off of the street. As you can see, this taken right, took that right from Oak Street, looking directly north. This home was right there in the parking lot, right next to St. John's Church. It was on the northeast corner of Oak Street and 1st Street southeast. And this was Dr. Smith's home. He was a veterinarian, and he had lived there for years. And right next to him, on his right, was the high school. On his left, was the Greek Orthodox, Orthodox Church. This home stood on the on Federal Street. It's now gone. That's between 2nd and 3rd Street. It's part of the parking lot in there now. This home originally was over on Lincoln Way, and a person by the name of Mrs. Gow lived over there, and it stood over there on Lincoln Way East, up almost to 8th Street, right next to the corner house there. And they moved that over there a long time before we moved around here, because I remember that when we moved up on Welma Street, we lived up the next to last house on the street, and this is about the 5th or 6th house from the end of the road.
On Wellman.
On Wellman, yes. And it was still standing there when we moved up there, and it's still standing there now. But they've let it get pretty bad. Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it isn't. This was George Russell's home. This was down on South Erie Street. And that's when Arnold came to Massillon, and it was his funeral home, and it's right on the northeast corner of Oak and South and South Erie Street. That's one of the old Russell homes, and it's still standing, by the way. Now, there's some little discussion about that. That house that stands right in back of it, it doesn't show up in this picture. I've taken some pictures that it does show up. Why, they maintain that they cut the back part of that off and turn it around, and the three sides that you can see from the each side and from the front, why, originally stand out facing South Street. The back of it is what was fastened onto the back of this home right here. Another old home. This is down on South Erie Street. I'm not sure exactly where that home is. I think it's still standing, if I remember correctly. It's down on South Erie Street. And that one is also. Now, this, I think, is going up the hill there. That's one of the houses that was torn down when they had their straightening of the road down there. All right. Any of you remember the old bus depot? No, you do.
Is this where Sutter's is now?
Yes.
I don't think we can remember this one.
No, that
Really?
that was in other words, Sutter built his home, his restaurant, his jewelry store there in '49, and yes, and but this I remember this very distinctly as a kid. And originally it was for streetcars. There was a streetcars where you wouldn't get your tickets to get the streetcar to Canton. And then later on, why, the buses came in. That was the bus headquarters. And then finally it was sold and torn down. And then, what the dickens are those people's name? Anyhow, they built the bus station down where the police station now stands on Tremont Street. Pinus tore that down, or sold it, and I think that Sutter then tore it down. But Pinus originally was out there right on Lincoln Way East, but they moved from there down and built the bus station down on on Tremont Street.
That building behind it is the one we're in now.
That big one?
Yeah.
That's the one we're in right now.
What was that originally?
Well, there was a Falkbach in there. You mean this very building here originally? Well, originally, I know that I think it was first built. That trying to think who come up here and moved in here at that time. They had a clothing store in here, and they were in here for a long time until they went out of business, and then Starks came in here, and after Starks, why, O'Neill's were in there until they went out of business. And after O'Neill's, why, they had a hard time getting anybody in here that was a big store. They couldn't get a big store in here after O'Neill's left. And, but they were in there. But this was built in about 1929, if I remember. And I'm pretty sure I'm right on that date, too, in 1929. That there were some people came into Masson here, and they had bought they were in a department store that was down there right next to where the Woolworths are now, or were. And then they sold that. They didn't sell it. I think it was sold out from under them. And they come up here and moved into this place. This is, I copied this picture. I don't know if it's worthwhile or not, but there's an article in the Akron paper that says, houses that go bump in the night. And it's supposed to be haunted. Now, whether that's true or not, I have no idea. But anyhow, I got a picture of the house if it was. Why, if it was, I got a picture of it. If it wasn't, I got a picture of it. Still standing out there in out Kendall, off of Wales Road.
On Kendall?
Not on Kendall Street, but out in Kendall. That was called Kendall out there originally when they moved out there. When they tried to make that, when they started this new allotment, that was called Kendall at that time. And the man that owned the house,
It looks like Roger Fox.
Whose?
You know Roger Fox?
I don't know.
That's out on Concord.
Concord, yeah.
Well, that could be it. Could be on Concord. And this fellow lived in there at that time. Why, he was a reader. He would read handwriting and things of that type. And he was quite a character. And we had him down at the Lions Club a couple of times to talk to us. And he'd tell us some of the darndest stories you ever heard of in your life. But anyhow, he was living there when that was written up. This is Craig's home. Now that, as you can see, was ready to tear it down. And that stood right next to where the Martin Sound System is today. And that was after Craig had moved away from there, and he built his home up in Charity Roch. And you know where, the man that owns the pizzas around town here, Kraus. You know where Kraus lives now? Mm-hmm. All right. Now, Craig built that home. And he built that when he went out of business there, down at his drugstore. He had a drugstore right down there next to, on South Erie Street. It was right in, it's one of those buildings down there that Tommy Kimmons fixed up. And it wasn't the darker one, it was a lighter one in there. I think it was the lighter one of the two. It was in there where Abel Fletcher was.
Okay.
And he was on the first floor there, and he was there for years and years and years. I can't ever remember, and Craig wasn't there until he went out of business. And then Huffman moved over there, and he ran a drugstore there for years. But he was living there on Lincoln Way East, and he lived right next to Herring. And then he moved away from there, moved up and built that home out there in Kendall Heights. Now this is an attorney McGackey. Now this name, you got to remember how to pronounce that thing, because you can't ever read it, the spelling of it, the way it's spelled. And that's been torn down, and it stood on Wilma Street, and it was the third house east of 4th Street. When we moved up on Wilma Street, why, the John McLeans lived there on the corner. That home's still standing. But then after her mother died, they moved over into the Burton home over on Lincoln Way East. The home next to it there that you can see right on the left, that's where the Judge Day family lived there. And then this is where McGackey lived. And he lived there till he died. And then it was rented out after that for some time, but it was finally torn down. This is down on the South Erie Street, down where the state hospital is. As I understand it, this home was on the state hospital property and belonged to the people that sold that property to. I think Massam bought that property and gave it to the state of Ohio to build that hospital down there. I don't know why in the world we didn't give them a lifetime lease on that instead of giving them an outright lease on that, because now we got to buy that fool thing back. By the way, that home's still standing down there. Now it's up to you people now. It's 2:45.
We've got another one here. You want to do that one too?
Do you want to do one more? Do you have more at home?
Oh, Lord, yes.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, now this, I have a picture of this. Now, I took this picture not too long ago. As you can see, the home was painted at that time, and it was standing up until about the first of the year when they tore that down. And that stood on the southeast corner of North and 3rd Street. It's where Packley?
Yeah, I think Packley's carrying
Sure, it's
it.
Packley's insurance, Packley's funeral home. It's now part of their funeral lot back there. And they've taken off a couple of rows of stone there at the top of that, too. This home, this is where Yost has his attorney offices right in there. That's on the northeast corner of 3rd and Federal. And this is an old home here. And this one, of course, now, this one is really a very handsome home. This is the, let me see now, I've got to get my mind working on this to get back to the man that built that home. Now, he built that, by the way, that was built by, he originally built the home where the, right across the street from where the Baptist church is, on Lincoln Way East, on the same side of the street, but on the other side of 6th Street. And he sold that home and then built this home up here. And what was his name? Began with a Mick something. Oh, this is going to haunt me to my dying day when I can't remember that name. Because he's the one he is the one Democrat that could beat Lincoln, or beat McKinley. McKinley beat him out once for the Senate, the state Senate, and he came back the next year and knocked McKinley out. But that's a very handsome home. This was built in 1870, 75, 76, along in there. And you know where the house is, don't you? Yes, that's that rest home on Lincoln Way East. This one stands over here on Federal. Nobody knows, on North Street, nobody knows when that house was built. You don't have a record of that